I'm Angela, and I'm going to be answering the questions that Dania sent me about the project that you're doing. All the questions I'm going to be answering, I'm assuming, are talking about indoor houseplants as opposed to like backyard gardening, just because the demographics and the culture around those two hobbies are kind of different. So all the questions I'm answering are in regards to indoor houseplants and that kind of like popular stuff, which usually are tropical plants and succulents. But let me know if you want me to answer these questions in a different context or a different kind of like backyard culture. So there's like, farming, greenhouse farming, like commercially, in the backyard gardening, balcony gardening, container planting, and of course, like house plants. So right now I'm just doing house plants. So first question: what are the nuances some homeowners might not be aware of when learning how to like take care of house plants? I put down watering, light requirements, pot size, humidity, soil requirements, and indoor pests. So the number one problem I think is probably watering, because it's probably the most difficult to get right. And also because the symptoms of overwatering and underwatering often look very same. So like when you see a houseplant that kind of looks, like sad, as in like yellow leaves, like wilting leaves, it's wilting leaves, like stunted growth, brown leaves, like all of that, like a lot of like online plant apps will tell you it's either underwatering or overwatering, so it's kind of hard to kind of pinpoint and identify. And also this information has a lot of the information for specific plants you can find online. Like you can Google like care for like Monstera deliciosa, so like the Monstera plant. And then they'll tell you like oh, like water regularly, or like water once a week, or like like they don't like dry soil, or like they don't like moist soil, like try not to keep like like too moist. So they'll tell you, this information is widespread, but it's kind of hard to apply because this information doesn't take into account the size of the pots, like how big or how small the plant is. Obviously, a bigger plant would need a lot more water than a little plant, even if it's the same species. The type of pot someone's using, the humidity in their house, the type of water that their house is getting, the soil composition of that particular pot, and that kind of stuff. So when it comes, so there's a lot of like nuance in this document. It's a lot more specific, but I don't think you need to know. I think you just need to know the problems about it, right? So I'm debating still if I should include it. It's fine. That's the problem. And then this can be solved if, like, once again, it just takes kind of experience for someone to sort of know, and that experience usually comes at the cost of many failed plants or dead plants, and someone will learn the hard way how much you can water, or like how much you can feed a plant. When it comes down to that, it just really depends on like how much water is in the soil itself. So to solve the problem, you can buy like water meters, I think, that tell you how much water is in the plant, how moist the soil is, something like that, like an indicator would be useful. You can buy in the market. It's pretty rudimentary though, so there's room on it to expand. This document isn't this document isn't this video is not like trying to like add, just as a reference. I don't know what you guys want to go into. I'm just giving you kind of like a fly stripes on it, as just giving you a kind of a reference some of the problems. So I'm not gonna but there's stuff out there for that. I'll cover it later. And so that's watering. It's things most difficult. So for that, it's just to know how much water in the plant is literally just how moist the soil is. So light. Some plants need more or less light. This is different for all species. It's a simple fix, a bit hard to identify because once again, the symptoms of like a plant not having enough light, too much light, are very varied and can also look like under or overwatering or a bunch of other things. So to tell you, sometimes you can look that up, and to fix it, you would just have to move the pot to a different space. So there's a difference between like filtered light, direct sunlight, filtered light, like light coming from an east west north south facing window, or they picky about natural daylight or like grow lamps, that kind of stuff. It's an easy fix. You just need to move it somewhere else before you to see if it changes the growth habit. So you just move it around until it stops looking sad. Next problem is pot size. Some plants can have like very deep roots or very wide roots. This could cause the plant to be root bound. So that's when you take out like the plant from the pot, and then there's just like a bunch of roots inside, and that's when you know that there's no more space for the roots to go out, and it kind of stunts the growth, because the diameter of the roots is directly proportional to how much nutrients it can take up. So you would just need to move the pots to a you just need to repot it into a bigger pot with more soil and just kind of break up the root balls. It's an easy fix. It's hard to detect, in my opinion, because you can't really tell unless you regularly check it, or you notice your plant isn't growing as much, or it's been about a couple years, or you can physically see the roots coming out the bottom of the pot. That's how you know it's a problem. I don't know how you would sort of like detect for it. Some owners can kind of like tell, or they have schedules, like every couple years they'll just do a mass repotting of all their house plants. That's what me and my mom do. So I'm not sure how big of a problem that is, but it's definitely some factors that affect owning house plants. Fourth one is humidity. So a lot of the plants that are considered house plants in Western countries are tropical plants. These are plants that you would normally find in tropical rainforests or countries near the equator. And there's a bunch of reasons for this, all the way spanning all the way back to Victorian England and the popular trends. I could tell you the entire history about house plant culture from Victorian, specifically in Victorian England, but so much you're asking for, so it's okay. But yeah, so that's why the reason why it's important is because plants like that require humidity, and in Western countries we don't have humidity because I'm sitting outside and it's dry and it's hot. I'm gonna go back inside. But yeah, so plants don't necessarily, in my experience, like tropical plants I have at home, I have like philodendrons and monsteras. They don't necessarily need like humidity to grow. Some plants that like take up water from the air as opposed to the roots might benefit more from it. So I don't see it as a potential problem. I see it sort of as maybe a potential product or luxury item. Some fixes I've seen for this are people who just grow plants specifically in their bathroom because there's more humidity there when they take a shower, or some people who would buy these fancy little glass boxes from IKEA, or you can do just any clear box and just use that as a greenhouse to get that greenhouse effect. Or some fancy people would have a whole greenhouse installed in their backyard, have a DIY greenhouse where they just have a big shelf and they just cover it in a plastic tarp, or you can get a plastic tarp off Amazon and just cover it, so that would count as a sort of greenhouse effect. So it's just monitoring the humidity, and I know that this works and helps a lot better is because I have a friend who actually does have this in their backyard, and they just have a tarp covering a shelf, a sort of area, and their monster tripled in size. So it definitely helps because it mimics their natural habitat, so you can buy humidity meters for this, but it's not really a must-have with tropical house plants. I've seen a lot of people find success even if they don't do it, the plant still seems happy. So I don't do that. My plants are pretty sure fine. What else did I put down? Okay, soil composition. Once again, you can just buy potting mix or soil mix that is labeled specifically for tropical houseplants. I've seen in Lowe's, brands like Miracle Grow. But soil composition is definitely one of those things where you can't use outside dirt, obviously. You can't use regular potting soil, raised bed soil. It has to have a certain mix of perlite, peat, moss, vermiculite, and just regular potting soil. Don't think this really needs this is more of a preparation kind of thing, so if your soil is already shit, then it's up to you to kind of fix that and to test for soil. Most people who own house plants already kind of know what soil they grow because they're usually the ones who are potting it, because people don't usually, when they buy plants from a greenhouse or a nursery or even outside, they normally, it's common practice to kind of go home and repot into a different pot before you really keep it in your house, just because you don't know what pests and diseases are in that nursery soil, and also because not a lot of people would keep the nursery soil and keep that in their house. But it's definitely, it can be an issue if your plant seems sad. And then I also have pests, just inside the house, because it's living things need other living things to deal with it, and also plants attract insects because they are beneficial or detrimental to each other. So these things should just be flies, spider mites, midges, gnats, fruit flies, those kind of annoying stuff. Not really bees because it's inside, but it is, this can be a problem that affects it when they eat holes or kind of burn holes, or lay eggs, or just on your plants, or eat your plant, or like bite into your plants, like get all the water and just make your plant look very sad. The different problems. The common fix I've seen is just to buy fly tape, so you just kind of stick a thing in the soil and just sticky, and the gnats will stick on it, or just put out a pot of like a cup of like warm water, or like warm sugar water. That usually fixes the problem. So, but it's an issue. So, I'm just telling you the issues and like how people would like right now how would solve it, the methods I've used, so you can kind of take into consideration how you want to make a solution better, more efficient. So, what else I have? I think that's all I have for nuances. So question number two, how big should the device be for a pot? What's the smallest pot size and do they normally hold plants that require constant monitoring? So the smallest, so obviously I've seen plants that go as as small as diameter of a quarter kind of, but that's not really people. As once I said, people will repot the plants when they get home. So the smallest, like realistically, I've seen someone will try to keep a plant. The smallest I have right now would be about like 4 to 5 inches in diameter. This could be square or circle pots, like smallest, and then biggest I've seen are like a few gallon pots. So these would be like maybe like 2-3 feet in diameter and about like 2-3 feet deep. I'm not sure how much that is in volumes. You guys can do the math, right? That's how big it is. How in terms of size, I'm not sure what you are making yet, but in terms of like how deep, so if you were to make a soil monitor, how deep it would need to go would probably be like a good 1 to 2 feet if you guys are going for that. That's about average in terms of soil. So if you have more questions, you can let me know, or more specific questions. 3, what existing technology already exists? So I talked about it in the first question. For watering, I just did a quick Google search. There are like water meters you can have, but they're really rudimentary. It's just like a little screen with like dial that gives you level from 1 to 10, and then on the back of the box that they sell it in, they just tell you like what levels for like what plant. So that's one way. You can get water like meters, like I just said. You can get to solve the problem of light. You can get grow lights to solve the problem of like humidity. You can get like specific greenhouses for that, and then in those greenhouses you can also buy like additional humidity vials or like dials for it, and also like a thermometer to test that. For soil composition, it's literally just look up like common brands for soil, for houseplants, for pests. There's there's a fly strips, like fly tape, like fly traps or other insect traps that I've seen that just solves those problems. In terms of like figuring out what's wrong with the plant, I've seen plant identification apps where you can just take a picture. I think it's like kind of like Plant Doctor or something. I think there's already an app for that, or it might be a Kickstarter, or it might be in development, or it might be someone's AI project. I'm not sure. I've seen it circling around Instagram, where you just take a picture of the plant and then, or the affected area of a plant, so like the sad looking part of the plant, and then they'll just kind of compare it with other pictures online and they'll tell you what's wrong with it. That's what I've seen. I don't know how accurate it is, because when it happens to me, I kind of just do my own research and suss it out, and I've killed a lot of houseplants. I'm not the best at this. My mom usually takes care of them. I know a lot about it though, but they still don't like me. So that's existing technology. If you would ask me what like needs to be like what sort of like what is like a need in the community, I wouldn't really know, because we tend to have a lot of like different sort of like small solutions to fix a bigger problem. I recommend going on to like sites like Reddit, like r/houseplants. I'm a part of that, r/houseplants, r/backyard gardening, to kind of see what people mostly complain about. Or you can look at the reviews of like houseplant websites and see what they complain about, or go on like houseplant blogs and see like what's like what's the content of their like blog posts and what do they read the most about. It's the kind of thing that most people have a problem about. Kind of expand on that. I don't want to give you any kind of like advice on like products, because I'm not that much of a houseplant enthusiast. I've just circled the communities a lot. I don't actually like own a lot of them because I don't have a lot of space in my house, and it's not like I have years and years of experience. I'm kind of just like propagating plants. So okay, 4, how much Do people water their plants? Are we going to the option where you specify how much ounces to water? Yeah, you can do that. I was thinking like you can do like a, actually no, never mind. How much do people water their plants? How much? Like I said, depends on what plant to plant. So it can be anywhere from like a tablespoon to like a whole like half cup. Normally people would kind of like just pour enough to like kind of like soak all the soil, and then they'll stop when the water starts leaking out of the plant, or just until the soil is moist. So like when they stick their finger into the soil, and then it's like stays moist. In terms of it's not a steadfast number because it depends. Like I said, like on the in the first question that I answered, it really depends how much someone will water their plant. In terms of methods, a lot of people water plants different ways, and this is relative to how many plants. I've seen, just watering directly with a watering can, like overhead, or they water it like specifically on top of the soil. They use drip irrigation if they're really fancy. They use like those like tip feeders where like they kind of like have a bottle upside down. There's like a plastic cone that goes into the water and just kind of stick it in. It releases the water directly into the soil, so it doesn't even touch the surface, which like prevents things like mosquitoes. And also they can do bottom feeding, where they just put like the pot in like a plate of water, and the soil will, through capillary action, the soil will just kind of absorb all the water. Not that good for root rot though, because if it's too moist, the roots will rot and the plant will die. There's paper feeding, where people have these like cool pots with like a sponge kind of hanging out and shape of like a Bulbasaur or something, and they'll have like be drinking a little pot of water, and once again through capillary action, it'll suck up the water, and it'll water the plant. Some people would just mist. Some people like mist with a spray bottle. Some people some people use like watering can and water like the whole thing on top. Some people will like dunk the whole plant like upside down at once. Some people will like stick all the plants in the shower and just turn on the shower, just have all of it rain down. Some people will literally like waterboard their plants if they're small enough to hold like a giant bucket of water, and just like waterboard their plants in the water. I've seen this method with succulents, and people kind of debate how useful it is. I personally have never done that because I don't have time to waterboard my plants on a regular basis and pretend like that's beneficial. It's definitely one of the methods that I see circling around. It's like Instagram and stuff. They're like, oh, do this, and you're like, why? So I think it's all the questions. Yeah, that's all I have. So let me know if there's any more specific questions, or you want me to expand on anything else. This is just my personal experience circling these communities, and I'm excited to see what you guys come up with. So